going to be a book tag video, and this is being quite popular sort of over TikTok. I recently got into TikTok. I've only posted like 2 things of the dogs, but that's a whole nother story. But yes, there's like this, like, people post these things called like collector's check, and you can do a book version of it. So that's what I'm going to do today. Most of the things are like questions are ones that I've got off TikTok, but I did add a couple others in myself and took a couple out. So yeah, so without further ado, this is the TikTok book collector's tag. So let's just jump right in. This is really hard to do actually, to pick just like one book. So yes, so let's start with the last book that I read that I've like completely finished, and that is The Cursed Child. I've recently, you may know that I've been reading the whole Harry Potter series, and I finally finished that, and so the next thing I thought I had to read was The Cursed Child. Following on from this, I'll obviously read the Fantastic Beasts. But yes, I really enjoyed this. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I know it's been quite controversial, but I seem to quite like it. So that was the last book that I have finished. And if you're wondering, like, if I keep like petting down here, it's because Baloo is sat with me, because he cannot go anywhere without me. Bless him. So yeah, he's just gonna quietly sit by me. So that is the first book. The next book is a book that I have reread, and I don't tend to reread books that much. It's usually I will reread it if it's been like in a series. So if the 3rd book suddenly come out, I'll reread the 1st and 2nd just so I can get into it if there's been like a long gap. But I tend to now sort of wait until the whole series is out so I don't have to do that. But this book I've actively reread maybe 3 or 4 times, and that is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivy. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce their name, but I love this book. It's set in like this really far away place in the forest, like a cabin in the woods, and it's a couple, and this snow child comes and visits them and they sort of adopt her. It's a really beautiful book, and I guess that's why I've reread it multiple times. So that is that one. Next we have The Prettiest Book, and again this was hard to choose because I have some really gorgeous like hardback editions, especially of some Agatha Christie books, but this one I've had probably one of the longest, and this is definitely one of my prettiest books. This is the Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. I'm not quite sure who has published this. Let's have a look. This is a Barnes and Noble's edition, so it's got a gorgeous, I guess like a leather finish on the front. It's this beautiful sort of periwinkle purpley blue with gold foiling and really gorgeous pink accents. The font is just beautiful with the little roses, and that just like continues on the side and on the back. It also has sprayed pink edges, which is beautiful, and then inside it's got a gorgeous like inlay as well, and it's got pictures in it. Also it's got the original pictures. It's just an overall stunning book. So that is my prettiest book on my bookshelf. We then have the most expensive book, and for me it's probably this one. This is a book by Desi Arnaz, and this is super hard to get. It's not in the best condition. I think we got it on Amazon or eBay, and yeah, what's this? We got it from Amazon Marketplace actually. It doesn't, this is like the packing slip, it doesn't actually say how much it was, but we bought this back in 2011. So yes, I reckon these go for sort of around anywhere between like £50 and £100, so I'm assuming it was probably sort of around anywhere in that range. I'm not quite sure because I think my dad managed to purchase it through Amazon. I think we got a good price for it, but it's definitely now like one of the most expensive books on my shelf, and they don't print this anymore, so it's really hard to find. And this sort of coincides with a book that someone might not have on their shelf. So this sort of falls into many different categories, but the one I did pick for a book that someone else might not necessarily have on their shelf is this one. This is Diary of a Mad Diva by Jane Rivers. This falls also into another category as well, which is signed copy edition. This is a signed copy, and this is probably one that has some of the most value on my bookshelf, I want to say. This was $26.95 when I bought it, and it's quite a small book, but I literally got this maybe a week after or days after hearing about her passing away, and it sort of felt like fate that I needed to pick it up. So that is one that not necessarily people might have and not necessarily have a signed edition of, so that's like my interesting book. We then have, which that could have also fallen into, was signed copy. So for my signed copy, I picked Spaceman by Mike Massimino. This is one of my favourite astronaut autobiographies. I just really liked his story and the way he told it, and I think he is a really nice guy. And yeah, so there is his name in the front, and yeah, that is my signed copy that I chose. We then have favourite series, and I couldn't pick between these two, so I did pick both. I picked one as like my favourite most recent series that I've read, and one as overall, I guess. But both of these are definitely long life favourites. First one is The Hunger Games. This sort of first started my love for dystopian books, and you know, I'll forever remember reading this, and I have read this a couple of times. I'm not overly keen on this edition. These are the original like UK editions, because it says soon to be a major motion picture. So I'm not overly keen on these like very garish colours, but I've kept them ever since, so I've got those. And then I also chose, I had to choose because I've just finished reading it, was the Harry Potter series. Obviously, I think it's, if you've read Harry Potter, it's a pretty much guarantee that it is one of your top favourite series of all time, so that is why I picked it, because I think you can't beat it. They're such two different series, and yeah, that was my other favourite that I picked. Then we have a book that you always recommend to someone, and I always recommend this to someone whether they like murder mystery or not. I think it's a brilliant book. This is also one of the prettiest on my bookshelf, and this is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I think if you want to pick one Agatha Christie book, this is a great place to start. They did do like a TV series on it, and it's basically, I think, is it 10 or 12 people are invited to this mysterious island by this unknown person who doesn't actually turn up at their own dinner party, and one by one each person is killed off. It's really well written, and like you don't guess the ending, or at least I didn't. And yes, I would definitely recommend this. It's not a Poirot or a Marple, it's sort of a standalone book. But yes, I would recommend that to anyone, whether you like murder mystery or not. If you like a little bit of suspense, you're gonna enjoy this. We then have smallest book, and this is my smallest book. This is 10 Things I Hate About You. This is probably, again, a book that people don't have on the shelf. This was a really hard one for me to try and find. Obviously, there is the film based off it, but this is the book by, is it David Leviathan? Adapted by David Leviathan, so yes, and it's based on, obviously, The Taming of the Shrew, but yeah, this is just like the adaptation, as if they'd taken the screenplay and just put it in a book. It's got some really lovely little pictures, and it's not the best edition. Like, you can tell someone had read it, and it was like given out by Scholastic. This was released in America for the pricely sum of $4.99. But yes, I am really glad to have this because this is one of my all-time favourite films. And then going on to the other end of the spectrum, we have biggest books, and I chose, well, I've got two, but one I'm going to put into a different category. So for the biggest book, I chose Under the Dome by Stephen King, purely because this has the most pages. It's a little bit shorter than the other book, but it has the most pages and probably the most writing in it. Stephen King's books are always massive. I've only ever read one other book of his, and this is quite overwhelming to like see and think about reading, but I will get to it one day because I think it's a really interesting premise. But yes, that is my biggest book, and it has a grand total of 880 pages. And then the other book that could sort of give it a run for its money, but I've chosen this as a book that's on my TBR, and it's probably one I'm going to read next, and this is Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. If you don't know, this is basically Twilight. I think it's just Twilight itself, but told from Edward's point of view. So very interesting, and it's probably going to be the next one I read. But like I said, it is a massive book. It's about 760 pages or so. So yes, that is that one. And then the last thing that I want to show you is something on your bookshelf that is not a book. So I have a couple little trinkets. You probably always see these little Mickey Mouses. I will quickly just show you them, but I have something in particular that I just picked, but oh well, let's show you them all. This one is really special to me because it was my nan's. She got this on the 25th anniversary of Walt Disney World, so we're coming up to it being 25 years old this year. It is a year older than me, so she obviously went the year before I was born. And yeah, the clock, I think the batteries need changing, but it's even got like the original sticker on the bottom. It's like really vintage looking, and yes, that is one of my most prized possessions, so that sits there. And then this one, I believe, is either Darren's nan or Darren's mum one, but they kind of gifted it to us from when they went to Disney when Darren was a child. I think his arm is broken off at some point because it looks like someone's had to glue it together, but again, like really vintage, and they're very like sentimental pieces, so that's those two. But the one that I did pick up was this. This is a tiny little frame that we got on our cruise back in 2016 was the year we got engaged. Yeah, 2016. We went on a cruise and we stopped off in Bruges, and Bruges are renowned for their lace, so this is a tiny little frame with a little piece of lace in it. And I remember we were in like one of the final gift shops before we were due to like get back on the cruise ship, and I was sort of a little bit rushed for time, and I saw this like really quickly before I went to the till, and I nabbed it, and I'm so glad I did because I think it's a really beautiful piece, and like just the lace work of it is so intricate. So that sits on my shelf as well. So that is my quick little TikTok tag. If you want to sort of contribute to this, leave me a comment down below with some of your answers to these different questions. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this slightly different book video. If you do want me to do sort of more book reviews again or book tags, let me know. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.